The music was soft jazz, the kind that sounded like it came free with an elevator. The air smelled like overcooked chicken skewers and someone's cologne overdose. My parents' retirement party was in full swing, held at the local yacht club they never belonged to, but rented just to flex. White tablecloths, fake gold centerpieces, and a giant banner that read, "Cheers to new beginnings, Bob and Janine." I stood awkwardly near the buffet table, sipping warm soda, trying not to think about how everyone in this room had a better seat than I did, both literally and figuratively. See, I'm Matt, 31, factory technician. Not the glamorous kind, the kind that gets black gunk under his nails and occasionally breathes in things OSHA would rather not know about. My parents had made it very clear over the years that my blue-collar lifestyle wasn't exactly something to be proud of, which is hilarious, considering my dad worked construction for 35 years. But hey, now that they were retired, apparently they were reborn as cruise-level elitists. I hadn't even been invited directly. I found out about the party from my cousin Jamie's Instagram story. She posted a boomerang of the invitations, shiny gold foil, fancy cursive. I texted her, half joking, "Oh cool, what's this?" She texted back, "Didn't they invite you?" and then ghosted. Classic. When I showed up at the party, my mom looked like I'd brought a live raccoon. "Oh, Matthew," she said, holding a champagne flute like it might shatter from the shock. "You made it. That's surprising." "Yeah," I said. "I was in the neighborhood, and I love shrimp skewers." The room was packed with relatives I hadn't seen since my last haircut, and everyone kept smiling that tight, polite smile like they were trying to remember if I was one of the good ones. My brother, Lucas, the golden boy, of course, was working the room in a blazer that probably cost more than my rent. He'd started some fitness app that made him an entrepreneur, which I'm pretty sure just meant he yelled at people through Zoom while drinking smoothies. He gave me a one-armed hug and said, "Yo, bro, still doing the mechanic thing?" "Still breathing," I replied. "So yeah, then it happened." My dad clinked his glass. "Everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?" The room went silent. I took a sip of soda and waited for the usual speech. "Thanks for coming. We're proud of our kids. Let's drink until we forget our knees hurt." But no, my mom, smiling like she'd just been cast in a toothpaste commercial, chimed in. "As a thank you for being such a wonderful family, Bob and I are taking everyone on a cruise next month." The room erupted into cheers. Jamie screamed. Uncle Don fist pumped. Even Lucas gave a dramatic "no way," like he'd never heard this before, despite definitely helping book it. I blinked. Wait, everyone. I scanned the crowd. People were hugging. Plans were already being made. Aunts were yelling about bringing seasick bracelets and compression socks. And I was standing next to the damn cheese tray. I cleared my throat, walked up to Mom, and asked, Did you mean everyone? She looked at me, blinked once, and in a voice so casual it could have been scripted for a sitcom, she said, "Your seat was never reserved, honey." That's it. No explanation. No sorry. Just a casual "not you." I looked around. No one said a word. Lucas raised his eyebrows like yikes. Dad had the nerve to toast again. I stared at Mom, my mouth dry, my heart thudding like I'd been slapped in the face with a plane ticket I wasn't getting. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded, turned around, and walked out. No drama. No scene. But you bet your damn life. The next day, I booked a cruise cabin of my own. A whole damn cabin. And that's where this story really begins. The next morning, I woke up to the kind of emotional hangover you don't get from alcohol, just family. My phone was blowing up. The group chat, Fam Bam 2.0, was suddenly back from the dead. And what a resurrection. Lucas had dropped a PDF titled, "Cruise Itinerary. Passenger ship, sun with face woman dancing." That's not a joke. He included emojis. 3 of them. This man was 35. I opened it and immediately wanted to commit digital arson. Day 1. Set sail, champagne toast on deck. Day 2. Private island stop, yoga and snorkeling. Day 3. Group spa day and family mixer. Day 4. Captain's gala, formal wear required. Beneath it, Jamie wrote, "OMG, this is gonna be so luxe nail polish." And Aunt Carla sent 6 palm tree emojis and a gif of a pineapple wearing sunglasses. Very normal behavior for a Tuesday morning. Not a single mention of me. Not a wish Matt could come. Not even a pity tag. And the thing is, I wasn't hurt. Not in the usual way. I wasn't 12 anymore, sitting on the sidelines watching Lucas get his own graduation party while mine was just dinner at Applebee's. This was a grown-up version of the same slap, and I'd been slapped enough times to know when I was being handed a deluxe version of exclusion. So I did the only rational thing. I opened the cruise website. Same ship, same dates, same smiling couple on the homepage pretending they didn't hate buffets. Cabins were booking fast. Apparently my family had taken up half the damn ship. The economy rooms were gone, but there it was. Private balcony suite, ocean view, complimentary champagne. And I booked it. No hesitation. I didn't even flinch when I saw the price tag. I added room service. I added formal wear rental. I even signed up for the captain's exclusive tasting just to be extra. This wasn't a vacation anymore. It was art. I wanted to be there, on that ship, in a better room than anyone else. And when my mom asked, "What are you doing here?" I wanted to answer, "Enjoying my view." A few hours later, my phone buzzed. "Lucas. Hey bro, didn't mean for last night to be weird. You good?" "Oh, now I'm bro again. Fascinating." I replied, "Yeah, all good. Just booked a cruise. Same ship. Whole cabin to myself." His reply, "Wait, what? For real?" I didn't respond. Let that marinate, king. That night, I ordered a new pair of loafers, ones that screamed casually better than you. Because if I was going to crash their floating family reunion, I'd do it in style. They had their itinerary. Now I had mine. The week leading up to the cruise was like preparing for battle. If battles involved linen shirts, passive-aggressive text messages, and Googling how to not look poor in a hot tub. I didn't tell anyone else in the family I was going. Why would I? The element of surprise was half the fun. Well, that, and the knowledge that my dad would probably choke on his shrimp cocktail when he saw me on deck. Worth every dollar. Packing was weirdly satisfying. Normally, I'm a stuff-it-all-in-one-bag guy. But this time, I packed like a villain in a revenge movie montage. New button-downs, a real pair of loafers, even cologne that didn't smell like windshield fluid, and tucked into a zip pocket of my suitcase. Sunglasses I hadn't worn since Lucas said I looked like a gas station manager in them. On the morning of departure, I arrived at the terminal early and alone. The check-in lady looked at me and said, "Traveling solo?" I nodded. Recreational family avoidance. She blinked, then handed me my room key with a sympathetic smile. I boarded, took one look at my private balcony, and let out a slow whistle. The view? Chef's kiss. The bathroom had actual marble. The sheets had a thread count I didn't even know existed. It was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. On their ship, I grabbed a welcome drink, sat on the balcony, and waited. It took about 90 minutes for the group to arrive. I spotted Lucas first, leading the pack like some low-budget tour guide. Behind him were my parents. Dad in his classic cruise vibes tank top, Mom in a visor that looked like it had been ordered from Rich Grandma Weekly. I stayed hidden at first, watching from above like a balcony goblin. Then I made my move. I headed down to the main deck, casually leaning on the railing like someone who belonged there, because now, I did. I saw Jamie first. Her jaw physically dropped. She elbowed Lucas. He turned, looked right at me, and his eyes did that thing where they widened just enough to scream, "What the hell are you doing here?" "Matt?" he called out, like I'd risen from the dead. I raised my drink. "Hey fam, small world, huh?" Mom's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like her brain was buffering. "You what, how?" "Oh," I said with a smile. "I'm just on a little vacation. Booked it last minute. Balcony room and everything." Dad blinked at me like I was speaking Russian. "You're on this cruise?" "Sure am. And I didn't even need a golden invitation." Silence. And then, my favorite part. Lucas looked like he wanted to disappear. Jamie whispered something and giggled. And Mom just stared at me like she'd underestimated the wrong son for the last time. I sipped my drink. "Well, I'm headed to the captain's tasting now. Enjoy the shrimp buffet." And I walked off. Loafers clicking. Sunglasses on. Swagger is fully activated. The captain's tasting was held in a velvet-lined lounge that smelled like expensive oak and generational wealth. Think Yacht Club meets Wikipedia page on refinement. I walked in feeling like the guy who fixed the air conditioner in the building, not someone who belonged inside it. But I smiled anyway and acted like I could actually taste the difference between notes of cherry and hints of furniture polish. Marco, the server, poured me a sample of something smoky and probably older than my high school diploma. He asked, "Are you traveling alone, sir?" I grinned. Just me, and decades of unresolved family dynamics. He laughed. Bless him. That's what the strong stuff is for. I liked Marco immediately. The whole tasting was surreal. Everyone else was sipping like they were judging a wine competition. I was sipping like I had nothing left to prove and everything to enjoy. The couple next to me, dressed like they'd just stepped out of a cruise catalog, kept eyeing me, probably trying to guess whether I was rich, eccentric, or just crash landing into luxury. When I finished, I tipped Marco more than was probably expected and headed back to my cabin. I had 40 minutes before gala night, the cruise ship's version of prom, but with more orthopedic shoes and unspoken resentment. I stood in front of the mirror in my suit and barely recognized myself. I looked good, not model good, but stable income, owns a toolbox, still has back problems but dresses sharp good. The ballroom was already glowing by the time I stepped in. Chandeliers, string music, champagne flowing like they were trying to flood the ship. I saw them right away. My parents, Lucas, Aunt Melissa, all clustered by the bar, laughing too loudly. Mom had on a glittery shawl that probably looked expensive from 12 feet away. Dad was wearing a sport coat that hadn't fit him properly since the Clinton administration. I made my entrance like I belonged there. Which, let's be honest, I now did. I made a beeline for the bar, grabbed a flute, and casually leaned one elbow on the counter, about 5 feet from their group. Mom noticed first. Her expression traveled through 3 stages: surprise, forced smile, then a microsecond of panic. "Matthew," she said, like I had teleported in from another dimension. "You look sharp." I gave her my best neutral smirk. "Formal wear required." I read the itinerary. Lucas turned. "So you're seriously here? On this cruise?" "Well, I didn't climb into a suitcase," I said. "I booked a room. Balcony suite. Solo. Room service is fantastic. Thanks for asking." He blinked. "You just decided to come?" "No," I said, raising my glass slightly. "I decided to stop waiting for invitations I was never getting." Dad let out a short breath, half chuckle, half regret. Mom opened her mouth again, but I cut her off with a smile. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything. Let's just enjoy the night." The music picked up, and people started heading to the dance floor. I didn't dance, not right away. I sat at a corner table, watching the room spin in sequins and wine. I noticed Aunt Carla whispering to Mom, both of them sneaking glances at me like I'd grown a second head. Then Marco appeared out of nowhere with a second drink. "Compliments of one of the ladies at table 6, he said, nodding toward a group of retirees who looked like they ran the HOA on God's vacation property. I laughed. "Tell them I'm emotionally unavailable, but flattered." He winked. "Will do." The captain gave a toast an hour later. "To families and the journeys we take, on sea and in life." I caught Mom's eyes across the room. For the first time all trip, she looked unsure. Less queen of the cruise, more woman realizing she might have lost something she couldn't name. I raised my glass anyway. To family, to distance, to rooms with ocean views. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of waves and room service knocking like it owed me money. I opened the door to find a silver tray holding eggs, coffee, and a tiny glass of juice that looked like it had been personally squeezed by a stressed orange. I ate breakfast on the balcony, alone, in silence, and it was probably the most peaceful moment I'd had with my family anywhere within a 500-foot radius. Until 11 a.m. That's when I ran into Dad. And I do mean ran into. As in, I turned a corner by the shuffleboard courts and nearly collided with him holding a Bloody Mary and looking like he'd slept in a wind tunnel. "Matt," he said, blinking like I'd surprised him mid-confession. "Didn't expect you here." I gestured around the cruise ship. "Hard place to hide." He nodded and looked down at his drink. "Look, about the whole invite thing. Here it comes." "I wanted to," he said, glancing around like the Lido deck was bugged. "But your mother, she said you'd be busy. Said you probably wouldn't want to come anyway." "Interesting," I said, considering no one asked. Dad winced. "It wasn't meant to be personal." "It never is," I replied, "until it is." We stood there in silence while someone behind us scored a double in shuffleboard and celebrated like they'd just cured arthritis. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "She thought you'd feel out of place," he said. "That maybe it'd be awkward with everything." "You mean with Lucas?" I asked. He hesitated. "With the way things turned out. Like I was a souffle that collapsed." I sighed. Look, I'm not here for a scene. I'm here for shrimp cocktails and sunburns. You don't have to do this. But he didn't leave. Instead, he muttered, I saw your cabin. I blinked. You what? I walked by last night. Balcony suite, huh? Yeah, I said slowly. What of it? He looked almost embarrassed. It's nicer than ours. That made me laugh. Loud. Thanks, Dad. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was, he said, shrugging. You've done all right. Didn't think you noticed. I didn't, he admitted. Not enough. He looked tired, not cruise tired. Life tired. Like it had taken him 5 decades and a cruise ship to realize his younger son might be more than just the mechanic. We parted ways with an awkward side hug, the kind men do when neither wants to admit feelings are involved. But later that day, something happened that made my eyebrows shoot up so hard they almost sailed off the top deck. I was walking past the pool when I heard my name. It was Mom. Alone. No crowd. No fruity drink in hand. Just her, in a paperback she wasn't actually reading. Matthew, she said, standing up. I braced for passive aggression or a sideways jab. Instead, I got something worse. A sigh. Then, can we talk? I sat cautiously. She looked at me the way people look at long-lost relatives in airport reunions, a mix of guilt, disbelief, and how do I not screw this up? I didn't handle this right, she said. The party. The cruise. You. I waited. I thought you'd be too busy, she said. I thought you'd say no, and I didn't want you to feel like an afterthought. I stared at her. You do realize not inviting me made me the afterthought, right? She flinched, and for once, didn't defend herself. I messed up, she said quietly. And seeing you here, doing this. I guess I didn't expect you to show up like this. Well, I said, standing up. That's the thing about people you underestimate. They tend to. And I walked away. The next day, we docked at one of those glittering, Instagram-ready port cities where everything smelled like sunscreen and overpriced margaritas. The family disembarked in matching shirts that read, retired and ready to relax. I nearly choked on my latte. I, meanwhile, wore black linen, aviators, and the smug energy of a man who knew he'd left an emotional dent on this cruise, and wasn't done yet. Back on board that evening, the captain hosted a final gala night for all guests. Professional photographers roamed the decks, snapping photos of families with fake laughter and forced closeness. I tried to avoid it, until Marco, my favorite server, ambushed me with a grin. You haven't taken your official portrait yet. Oh, I didn't come with a group, I said. He smiled like he was in on the joke. Doesn't mean you don't deserve a spotlight. I gave in. I stood on the upper deck, ocean behind me, holding a glass of champagne like I was being profiled in Cruise Weekly's most petty guests to ever sail. The photographer took 5 shots. I chose the one where I looked calm, confident, and entirely unbothered. That night, I posted it to Facebook and Instagram with one single caption. Sometimes the best seat isn't the one you're given. It's the one you book yourself. No tags, no context, just vibes. And then, I went to sleep. At 6:47 a.m., my phone had 13 missed calls. At 6:52, a text from Lucas. Was that aimed at us? Because it really feels like it was. At 7:10, from Mom. Matthew, that post is causing unnecessary drama. Can you take it down? At 7:12, from Dad. I get it, son. You proved your point. Can we talk when we get home? Apparently, everyone at breakfast saw it. Aunt Carla said, that caption cut sharper than the fruit knives. Jamie reposted it on her story with fire. Even some of the crew had liked it. I didn't respond. Not out of malice. Just because I didn't need to. That was the wild part. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was clarity. At the pool later that day, I passed my parents and Lucas sitting stiffly under an umbrella. They stopped talking the second they saw me. Mom opened her mouth, then shut it. Dad gave a tight nod. Lucas looked away. I gave them a smile. And I kept walking. Because the truth was simple, they had finally seen me. Maybe not the way they wanted. Maybe not how they imagined it would happen. But they had. And they couldn't unsee it. They'd written me off the guest list. So I wrote myself into the narrative. The last morning on the ship was quiet. The kind of quiet that settles in after a storm, when everyone's done pretending it didn't happen. People moved like ghosts with carry-ons. I passed Jamie near the elevators. She gave me a soft smile, one of those good-for-you expressions people give when they've just watched your family implode in real time. I didn't look for my parents. I didn't need to. We docked. I stepped off the ship, duffel slung over my shoulder, feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't, but because I'd stopped waiting for their seat at the table. I'd built my own. At the port cafe, waiting on my Uber, I got a text from Mom. We didn't handle things well. If you ever want to talk, we're here. I stared at it. No manipulation. No excuses. Just, late. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just because I wasn't carrying that anymore. Instead, I posted one last photo. Me on the balcony, morning coffee in hand, sun rising over the ocean. Caption: sometimes walking away is the only way to arrive.